Hey guys, this is Pedro back with another interview, this time covering the LTA North Split 1. For this occasion, I'm here accompanied by Inero of Cloud9, coming off of a match against 100 Thieves at the end of the day, at the time of the recording, in which they finished as a second seed of the playoffs to then move on towards the LTA Split 1 playoffs in Sao Paulo, Brazil. So, Inero, thank you so much for giving me a chance to do this interview. First off, I gotta go ask you about how are you feeling. Sure, you guys are just coming off of a loss to 100 Thieves, and yeah, it's pretty tough way
Yeah.
to go down. But nevertheless, you got that ticket to Brazil, which I mean, by all things considered, is what matters most. So, how are you feeling after today's events?
Feel pretty good. Obviously, would have loved to be the first seed. But it is what it is. We really focused on FlyQuest this week. So beating them is like the real thing for us. It feels good. Especially just happy with how the games went. We got a lot of good takeaways from it, which is helpful. But yeah, it was really nice to beat FlyQuest.
I mean, obviously that was the main part of today for your team. I mean, by all
Yeah.
things considered, given FlyQuest's recent form, end of last year, getting into today, many people looked at those guys as the team to beat, and even like looking into today, looking at them as the expected winners. Obviously, that didn't turn out to be like that. You guys came out on top. You mentioned right then and there about like kind of like preparing for this matchup in the lead up to today. So exactly what was the game plan in general that you guys focused on the most, and how did that said game plan transpire throughout the series in its entirety?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was based on just like preparing what we're going to be playing for the week. We're still trying to expand like our champion pools. Like it is still the start of the year. Trying to figure out how to play specific things together that aren't just our comfort. We went into the week kind of knowing, like Yon Aurora are probably going to get banned. We showed that on stage the weekend before when we scrimmed FlyQuest. Like our sets against them, we basically picked it every single time it was up too. So it was like really obvious. These guys are going to think we're just two tricks on Yon Aurora. So practice with that being out and be ready for those situations. So we're really heavily focused on just preparing and kind of still just focused on ourselves and trying to expand and be more flexible as a team, instead of just being, you know, like a two trick team merchant.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely looking into that. I mean, into the series itself. Obviously, you guys started off on the losing end. In game one, games two, and game three, everything changed for for your guys' favor. Exactly, like what do you feel switched the momentum from like end of game one to your guys' favor the rest of the way in that series?
Yeah. So game one was like FlyQuest were pretty like handily beating us, but the game like stalled out pretty heavily. Like they were struggling to like push with their advantage and close the game. That always feels like good when you kind of already know the game is screwed for you. Like you don't really have like a great chance to win. That the other team's struggling, like, okay, they're having issues, they're beatable, like there's stuff there that we can abuse and just think about, and if we're in a better position for the next games, like we'll be able to like handily like beat them. So no one was really like beat up after the first game. We just looked at it, like Reaper went over with the guys, kind of what happened. We had like a draft plan in place, of how we could get an advantage the next game. We came out in a pretty good spot with what we wanted for the next two games, and I think we abused it as a team pretty well. Like game two, second draft versus FlyQuest was not very strong for them. Like, I mean, they basically did for top lane exactly what they said they're going to do and propose like tweet, but the rest of the draft I don't think was very strong at all. And our team like pulled it together and abused it pretty well. It was nice to see. So yeah, proud of the guys for that. Good, good games.
I mean, by the time game three rolled around, it was basically like wire to wire domination, I would say, especially like uh looking at that match entirely. Like, I mean, how'd you
Mm.
kind of like translate, or more so, how do you kind of describe how that series or how that final match transpired? Do you feel like by that point, once game three rolled around, you guys had all the momentum and you guys had like that confidence and like there's nothing like that could stop you.
Yeah. I mean, momentum is always great. Like you're coming off, like you've got like your adrenaline kind of going, you're feeling good. Um, And when you're going into the next game, you kind of already know what you're going to be on. So like we're prepared as a team. We know exactly what they're going to ban. We picks that we want. We have a comp that's like really comfortable for us. So no one's really having to like think like, oh shit, like what do I do with this? Like we haven't played this yet. Like all those like thoughts that go in your mind when it's kind of like overloaded and it's something new. So I think our practice focusing on things and getting used to them was really important. And the guys, like, I mean, at that point, they're performing with what they have decided is their comfort and what they think they're best at. And they went on stage and they did it. They were in a good position and they abused it.
I mean, taking a look over to like the team's overall run in this playoffs. I mean, sure, it's the start of the year, and like for many people, like they would say like, oh, it wouldn't be that much of a big a blow to like your team if you guys don't make it to the playoffs, or maybe uh, uh, anything similar to that. But nevertheless, looking at your team's overall run, taking on Lions, taking on FlyQuest, then moving on over to that seeding match against 100 Thieves. Plenty of twists and turns have been seen throughout this competition from your point of view, I can assume. And so, what I want to ask you, Inero, is how would you kind of view the team's overall form throughout this entire competition? And what do you feel has been the biggest, like, strengths and weaknesses that you kind of seen throughout these past 2 weeks that you feel has to be kind of addressed from now until like Brazil?
Yeah, I think actually like our bumpiest bit has been through this week, but we have those conversations as a team. Like going through this is something that's going to happen to every team. It's really important. But our form is obviously like we've been boot camping since December, so our team is in pretty good shape. Like we've had a lot of time. It should be expected for us that we should be in the playoff position for this team. Like we should be a team going to Brazil. If we weren't one of the teams going, it would be like a really massive problem for us. Like that would not be something that I find acceptable at all. So I mean, we're we're pissed we even got second seed. Like that doesn't even feel good for us. So I think we're in pretty good form. There's obviously a lot of stuff we still have to get better at. Like it's early on in spring, so there's going to be a lot of issues still for every team. But yeah, I think our form is good. I think we'll be able to pick up a lot going into Brazil too. Now that we can start scrimming, like FlyQuest and TL and the other top teams from Brazil more. Um, Also, I'm so used to just saying Brazil instead of like LTA South. It's so it's so difficult to get used to.
I mean,
But yeah,
we're still in the
I
start
was
of the
gonna we finally get to
2025.
scrim those like top teams like more now. We've kind of been like limited on the bracket, um, not being able to get those guys consistently, but I think that'll help us a lot.
Yeah, we're still at the start of the 2025 season, so it's still kind of new having to like go from like calling LT South CB LOL up until like this current
Yeah.
format. So yeah, definitely understand that. No hard feelings about that. I mean, you kind of elaborated so far on like preparation and things of that nature, early on in the conversation. But I want to paint it in the bigger picture regarding like this format, and specifically want to talk about like the fearless draft and how that kind of has added a new dimension to the teams, like work around the current meta and having to like go take a different direction with like or more so picking a certain a champion in a given situation. So how have you guys navigated that juncture of the fearless draft, and how difficult, if that's the appropriate thing to say, has it been for you guys to kind of navigate such a road?
Yeah, so I had spent a split last year 'cause after Golden Guardian sold, like, obviously I didn't have a job anywhere there on the scene initially. So I spent a split in academy where everything was obviously already fearless. It wasn't this type of fearless, but it was a close like level to it. So I had experience working with that. I kind of knew a lot of the logistical stuff that you need to like keep track of it and scrims, so it doesn't just become a mess of like thinking like, oh, what champions are gone, what champions are still up, etc. Um, so we had those kinks out of the way like pretty fast, and at that point, it just turns into figuring out like what you want to play, like figuring out how to build compositions with what's left that like makes sense in the current meta and then makes sense for your team and everyone's comfortable with. So we've been focused on that for a while, and it hasn't felt bad at all. Obviously, like it just forces you to play more things. Um, it's usually going to be like a similar pool of champions that are always like contested. Obviously, the top lane picks are like Cassante, Ambessa, Jace, Rumble are in every single draft getting banned. Skarner's getting banned like every time. The bot lane picks are constantly being targeted. So you're used to playing those champions like every single game, but you have to be ready for those niche scenarios where like, hey, all the ADs are gone. What am I turning into now? Like what? Like our team calls it like the McDonald's AD carries. Like, okay, we're at McDonald's now. Um, like what are we playing? So being comfortable with those situations when someone gets like pinched down past the like normal pool of champions is really what the focus of practice is about. Um, so yeah, we've been on that for a while. I think every team is kind of like pretty comfortable at this point of like what they're going to play, and so it's just really about having little like curveballs, I guess you can throw in there, which I think like FlyQuest themselves showed pretty well in their first week where they were leaving Skarner up and playing like an Ivan Cassio comp.
I really do appreciate the insight you gave me right there on that answer. I want to ask one more question real quick because the voices in my head are
Sure.
telling me to wrap up.
No
But
worries.
still, like, I believe it's the first time for you that you are getting out of like North America to travel to a different event. First time since like Worlds 2023 when you were part of Golden Guardians. And so,
Mhm.
what's the emotion like to go to Brazil and just try to clinch a spot in first stand, and also on top of that biggest focus for playoffs in Brazil? What is that one thing?
Yeah, so obviously it feels great for me. I mean, I had this expectation for myself and the team coming into joining Cloud9. Like an org like C9 is always going to want to be at these events and going to see anything that isn't that as a failure. So like I'm excited. Like I'm really looking forward to it. I love competing, especially now that I'm doing it again as a coach at the highest level. It's so great being able to watch like the other top teams play, be able to learn like different things about the game. So I'm focused on getting to Korea so we can learn like even more.
For sure, definitely do appreciate that, and hopefully, you guys can continue the momentum in Brazil. So that's it. I'm gonna wrap up the interview right here. Inero, thank you so much. Really do appreciate you giving me a chance to do this interview, and of course, best of luck goes to you in the future.
Hey, thank you so much.